The much-awaited revamp of the pharmaceutical policy may finally see some movement forward tomorrow. Ministers' meeting that will also have Finance Minister P. Chidambaram as a special invitee to discuss concerns raised by his ministry that have resulted in a fresh debate on the method of arriving at the pricing for essential drugs. Hello and welcome. You're watching We Mean Business. I'm Shweta Rajpalkoli. On the show today, we discuss if the revamped pharma pricing policy can address concerns of all stakeholders, the industry, the activists and the people at large. Let me introduce our guests on the show. Kiran Mazumdar, Chairman and Managing Director of Biocon, joins us from Bangalore. With me here in the Delhi studio, Meera Shiva, All India Drug Action Network. She, of course, belongs to that organization. Keval Handa, industry expert and former MD of Pfizer, joins us from Mumbai. And Abhay Kumar, MD of Shasun Pharmaceuticals, joins us from Chennai. Many thanks all of you for being with us here on the show. But before we kick off that discussion, a quick look at the big business story of the day, the biggest FDI proposal in the single brand retail category. That's IKEA's 10,500 crore rupee investment has been cleared by the FIPB today, after, of course, being given the nod by the DIPB. Faizan Khan now joins us live with more on that big news. Faizan, it's a big sentiment boost coming after those recent changes have been introduced. Of course, it will need to go to the CCA for final approval, but this probably means that floodgates are finally opening up in the retail sector. This proposal approval will definitely will give a big example to the other retailers who have been waiting, who have been queuing after the recent policy changes from 51% FDI to 100% FDI for single brand retail trading. Well, one of the biggest proposals that have been cleared by the FIPB till now, and that includes a total investment by IKEA at around 10,500 crore rupees in two different phases. Well, that will be definitely a booster dose for the government which is also eyeing FDI inflows in terms of fixing some fiscal problems. Well, the England papers, that was the last one that was cleared by the FIPB. Well, the IKEA becomes the second proposal that has been now cleared by the FIPB. Definitely this will have to be vetted by the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, since the inflow has crossed more than 1,200 crore rupees, and it will be a booster dose for the other retailers who have been queuing and waiting after this recent policy clearance. All right. Thanks for joining us and sharing those details. Yes, it is a significant development with the FIPB clearing that very, very critical proposal. But let's get back to the big discussion of the day, the pharmaceutical pricing policy, and what is it that we can expect tomorrow. Oinitam Ojha, who's been tracking the pharma sector, now joins us for more on that. Oinitam, what are the issues before the group of ministers?
Actually, why the confusion arose was because the finance ministry was not part of the group of ministers who had decided on the pricing formula for 348 essential drugs. Now, the group of ministers had earlier decided that a pricing formula based on the weighted average of drugs with over 1% market share will be the basis for the prices of these 348 essential drugs. But when the proposal went to the cabinet, the finance ministry expressed its reservations regarding the pricing mechanism that was cleared by the group of ministers. The finance minister is of the view that the government should continue with the current cost-based pricing mechanism for the 348 essential drugs. And formulations also should be included under the price net, under the new pricing mechanism. But then the question remains about what happens to the cap of 10% under the present mechanism, because as per the present norms, if you want to increase prices beyond this 10%, then you will have to go to NPPA for clearances. So in fact, tomorrow's meeting is expected to look into all these issues, and they have to actually decide on whether to go ahead with the group of ministers' earlier recommendation or continue with the present pricing mechanism as has been suggested by the Finance Ministry. Now, the Finance Minister will be a special invitee in tomorrow's meeting, and the final call is expected tomorrow because this next hearing in the Supreme Court is scheduled for November 27th. Back to you.
All right, a much awaited meet indeed that we will be tracking closely. Plenty of uncertainty out there for the pharma industry. Mrs. Kiran Mazumdar, how worried is the sector right now?
You know, Shweta, first and foremost, we are extremely concerned about the way this whole drug pricing policy is gone about. Because I think there is no clarity in terms of what are the objectives of this pharma pricing policy. I think the way NPPA and everyone who is looking at this pricing policy is going about it is not engaging with all the stakeholders, and I think it is very wrong the way it's being done. For instance, today we've seen that there has been a proposal to bring in a ceiling price for insulins, one for multinationals and one for indigenous companies. And the differential is anywhere between 20 to 40%, which is absolutely not acceptable. We want a single ceiling price under which all companies have to operate. I mean, there is no clarity. The objectivity is not there. And I think we are being almost, driven out of business because the government seems to believe that it's better to import products than to have indigenous manufacture of such products. So there is no clarity in the thought process. The whole drug pricing mechanism is already in place. There is a clear segmentation of unbranded generics which go to the tender route and institutional sales, and we have branded pharmaceuticals which are being marketed in a fiercely competitive retail market. Everything is working fine. Market dynamics, market forces are keeping prices down. We are seeing that drug prices are being kept down.
The concern of the government is the prices of the essential drugs, and that's perhaps one of the reasons, the main spirit and the intent behind actually re-looking at the pricing formula. The concern of the government has really been to bring down prices of essential drugs, and that perhaps is a valid concern. Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, so that's very well intentioned, Shweta, but I don't understand how they are trying to address this by what they are trying to do, because basically the mechanism is already in place. If they want low cost drugs, it's available to them through the tendering route. Today, through bulk procurement of government tenders, drug prices are extremely low, and for their intention universal healthcare program where they want to distribute essential drugs free of cost, I think the mechanisms are there for them to buy very low cost drugs. But why are they interfering with the retail branded drugs? This is a fiercely competitive market. Companies have to differentiate through brands. The pharma sector is a very valuable sector. Why are you devaluing it? What are you trying to do which is going to bring down prices further? It is not going to work.
Ma'am, your response to what Mrs. Kiran Mazumdar has said. She's saying you're devaluing the pharma sector, drug prices are already very low, and you're really going to impact this sector negatively if you go ahead with what is being proposed. Your thoughts?
No. Me impacting the sector, I must say,
I
must be very powerful.
No, the government's proposals is what.
That means government is in my pocket. That was also not quite
No.
true.
By you, I meant the government's proposals.
No, I'm not representing government. I'm a public health physician.
Sure. So the concerns of the activists have also been to bring down drug prices.
As a people's health movement, I'm part of that, and as All India Drug Action Network, that has been associated with public health issues for last 3 decades.
Right. Right.
So the drug policy, which came in 94 and DPCO 95, then the drug policy 86 DPCO, after that. So after 95, 2002, 2006 policies we've not had. Now where this issue of making of the pricing policy is, they have had discussions with the pharmaceutical industry lobby, all stakeholders, group of ministers, first time in UPA 1 and also in the second UPA 2. So we've all made submissions, and now when this is coming up, what Finance Ministry is saying that, market-based pricing is a brand value. So whoever does the maximum wining and dining of, those who prescribe, and 80% is out of pocket.
Sure.
Our health budget is very pipsqueaky, very inadequate. And why the question of retail becomes important is 80% of the drugs are through the retail. Through the public health system is a very, very small amount. So even if you have essential drugs which are of more reasonable cost, for majority of the people they'll still go to the retail shops. And where essential medicines are come, why should people have to die or suffer because the medicines are unaffordable? So the question is, with the cost-based pricing is, okay, you take certain amount of profit, reasonable profit, nobody denies. We want our Indian industry to do well. We want a public sector which has got asphyxiated to be functioning. I totally agree with her. I don't want drugs to be imported, and that's not what we would want. As a public health person, there are priority health needs.
Okay.
And medicines for that need to be given priority. See, you can push potency drugs, cough syrups, tonics, flood the market. And if they are prescribed, people will unfortunately buy and pay for them.
Mr. Keval Handa, is there merit in what Meera Shiva is really saying, and can we really achieve some sort of a mid-path here? Because what we're talking about really is a way by which we don't see the industry being hurt so badly with changes that are being proposed in the pharma pricing policy. At the same time, the intent really of making drugs more affordable and not having the kind of runaway prices that are there for some of these drugs. Mr. Handa.
Yeah, I think reducing the prices is very palliative. It's not going to solve the pharmaceutical problems. Let's face it. The bottom of the pyramid is going to have an issue of affordability at any price point. And therefore, we need to have a safety net. We need to have insurance. We need to ensure that the other schemes of the government reach to the bottom of the pyramid. Having said that, now, since 94, we are going forward. We are then taking 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, again taking 1 step forward, 3 steps backward. It's going on like this for a long time. The cost-based pricing has never worked, and it is not going to work in future. Let's look at what the cost-based prices has done for last so many years. The products which are under cost-base has come down from 26% today to 15%. 25 drugs out of the 74 drugs have gone out of the country to China. The products which were selling, the DPCO products in rural areas, have come down by 3 percentage points. That means no market expansion and availability is taking place. Now, to do a 348 drugs cost pricing is an impossible task. Even the NPPA itself has recommended that they don't want to do pricing on the cost base. And therefore, I think it's today irrational to go back to the cost base. We have taken a right step looking at the market prices. This is a Pranab committee's report suggested that. I have been part of the discussion. The GOM has also accepted this principle. And now the finance ministry is saying go back to the cost base, which is going backward again by 20 years. I don't think so. We need to move forward. Let's look at the prices. If somebody is saying the pharmaceutical industry prices are going up and we are agitated about it, let's look at some of the prices which has gone up between 2006 and 2010. Oil has gone up, oilseeds has gone up by 11%. Sugar has gone up by 15%. Food has gone up by 9%. And if that has not brought tears to your eyes, onions have gone up by 30%. And how much is pharmaceutical product prices have gone up? 1%. Is anybody listening to that? These are the statistics which clearly demonstrate the prices of medicines have not gone up. And if somebody wants to know about competition, for every molecule, there are 100 brands. Every molecule. In India, there are about 28,000 brands. In the NLEM list, Shiva, you are nodding your head, but I am giving you facts and data. In the NLEM list,
purchasing power
and in the NLEM list, 85% of the NLEM products, the price increase CGR for last 5 years is less than 5%. It's not an issue of prices.
Okay, interesting statistics. We'll try to get deeper into those numbers, and I can see Meera Shiva clearly nodding in disagreement. Before I go across to my next panelist, I think Mrs. Shaw also wants to make a point. Okay, Meera, to you quickly first before I go.
No. If it was so wonderful and everybody was being able to buy cheap drugs, why is it such a burning issue today? And why are the consumer and the health groups so extremely unhappy with so many brands, so many companies? We are supposed to be the pharmacy of the world. And so the question is, so if majority cannot buy whatever they're saying, that no increase, but with medicine prices it's supposed to decrease. Because, once the patent period is over, the prices and you have competition, the competition that means has not worked.
Mrs. Shaw, respond to that, please.
Well, I will just respond.
I
if
don't
you see a
agree
person
at all
on the road,
with
Mr. Handa, I'll just come back to you.
like
Just give
to
me a
say-
moment. I'll go across to Mrs. Shaw. Yes, ma'am, go
I
ahead.
would just like to say that I do not agree with Meera Shiva's observation. First and foremost, I believe that the drug industry is a soft target. And if you look at the total percentage that drugs occupy in a healthcare spend, it is only 15%. Okay? Secondly, I believe that drug prices are very cheap in many segments. And if you must know, India is the lowest priced drug market in the world. And it is the lowest cost producer of drugs in the world. So I do not accept this statement that we don't find cheap drugs, that all drugs are expensive. I think what you have to also address is the fact that India as a country has not provided health insurance to its citizens. It has not even provided access to health care for its citizens. That is the real issue that we are addressing. And if you create a healthcare ecosystem where the government takes responsibility, you will not be having this discussion.
Okay. Mr. Abhay Kumar, MD of Shasan Pharmaceuticals, is also with us. Mr. Kumar, then do we see any easy resolution of this kind of debate that we're having here? The group of ministers is expected to take a critical decision. We need to end the deadlock. Remember, there's a deadline that has been put in place by the Supreme Court. But given the fact that there are so many different viewpoints, are we going to see any movement forward or not?
The finance ministry is concerned about the pricing. The main concerns they have raised that the manufacturers may stop essential medicines, and that the prices of some of the when the equalization happens about the pricing, they feel that some of the drug prices may go up from the current level. Price control is not a new thing in India. In spite of drastic price controls, companies continue to manufacture APIs and formulations. And essential medicines have been available for years and available at a very affordable cost. As Kiranji rightly said, the prices have been the lowest in the country. And all the brands, those who have maximum revenues, are generally ones that have already been priced high. So apprehensions that prices of brands going up and making patients pay more is more theoretical. So ultimately it is the government who has to decide the span of price control. However, I believe that other than life-saving and critical care products, pricing should be left to the moderated by the competitive forces of markets, as I feel.
All right. Yeah.
No, I would like to say that in US, and I think this is a pharmaceutical industry criminal and civil penalties update. Ralph Nader's group, Public Citizen.
Okay.
And they've given in millions of dollars for unethical marketing, for withholding information. So the question is, for the, for this promotional activity, millions of dollars are spent. And that ultimately consumer has to pay, because medicine is the only thing where the doctor prescribes, and the patient, the consumers in distress have to pay. They're not going to go and
Madam, I think you should know that there is a medical
I want to say
code
one
of
more thing.
conduct
I
now.
agree that the drug prices, please can I finish? We don't mind.
Okay, Mr. Shaw, I'll just come to you in a moment. Yeah, if you could complete your point.
I agree to the point that, in India, the prices have been more reasonable than other, because the Indian Patent Act of 1971, which we've been forced to change. So now with that, with the new patent regime, number one, and where the fixed dose combinations of the essential drugs are not under price control. And if the price control is going to be on a single ingredient drug of that dosage, so any other drug of the same essential drug of a different dosage is out of price control. So we see a large number of drugs out of price control, and high level expert group set by the planning commission. 70% of the care, because most of it is OPD care, is basically on medicine. So when you say only 15% is out of is for medicine, I do not agree. But there's one more thing. I agree with Dr. Shaw on one thing, that health care, had it been better, had people not been left, you know, to fend for themselves, even when we have 18 languages where even the name of the medicine, the very name of the medicine is in an alien language which they don't understand. There's no consumer caution. There's no rational use of drugs.
Okay, Mrs. Shaw, respond to what is being said, and also if you could touch upon a proposal that has also become very controversial, or the proposal by the centre to possibly even ban the sale of branded drugs. If we could get your views on that.
Well, you know, first and foremost, I just want to respond to Mrs. Meera Shiva's comments, saying that, you know, drug prices...
I want to please emphasize that.
Okay, okay.
Please don't call me Mrs. I am doctor.
Doctor, sorry.
Yes, Mrs. Shaw, go ahead.
Dr. Shiva, I just want to respond by saying that first and foremost, I would like to know what you are referring to as prohibitive prices of drugs. Which are those drugs? Because if you look at basically critical care drugs, and if you look at the prices of, you know, drugs which are used for treating infectious diseases, and you know, the essential drugs that are identified, I think we are the lowest priced drugs in the world. So I don't see where you are coming from, that presumption that, or you know, this feeling that these drugs are overpriced. Okay. Secondly, we have multiple mechanisms that basically keep the drugs at a very low price base. We have the NPPA to begin with, then we have tendering that also you know, procures drugs at very low prices, and then we have competition which also keeps prices down. Secondly, there is a medical code of conduct, so your comments on wining and dining do not apply anymore. Okay. So there is a marketing cost involved, because as you can imagine, there is you know, a fiercely competitive market where brands are to differentiate. So there will be marketing costs involved. Also, I want you to also understand that there are many types of pharmaceutical companies operating in this country. There are companies which are totally vertically integrated with very huge operational costs, but who also command very high quality of their drugs. And there are virtual companies who do not have any establishment costs. So you have this huge range of industries which can price their drugs depending on whether they have virtual organizations or full-fledged integrated operations. So I want you to keep that in mind. And above all, I just want to you know, share with you that when it comes to branded and unbranded generics, there is already clear market segmentation where companies actually sell unbranded generics to tenders and branded generics to the retail. Now, in the retail market, as a consumer, I must be given the choice. If I want to buy a brand which stands for a certain reliability and quality, I would like to buy that brand. If it's 80% is out of pocket, then as a consumer, I must have the choice.
Okay, I'm really running out of time on the show. I have to give closing comments to the other two panelists. Mr. Abhay Kumar, a quick response from you on the way forward, really.
The way forward would be that today we are discussing only about one segment of the healthcare, in the sense only medicines, whereas the healthcare segment consists of so many other aspects like hospitals, infrastructure and other things. On my part, I would say the organizations engaged in pharmaceutical business, it is essential that they keep the spirit of serving nation at heart while they make their business profitable. And the mechanism which the GOM has decided to approve will help the pharmaceutical company to invest in research and development and in innovations, which is very essential for India to keep the leading position in the pharmaceutical generics market.
All right, Mr. Handa, last word to you.
I think the way forward is that everybody should chip in. The market-based pricing will bring the prices down. And also we look at the transaction cost. If the government wants to subsidize, it should bring excise zero, bring VAT zero, which will bring in 2,000 crore reduction in prices, which is about 10% reduction in prices. They need to bring a safety net of insurance, the universal health coverage, because prices alone will not solve the problem. Unfortunately, if you see a person on the road naked, you don't blame a textile industry. But if you see a man dying because of hunger or medicine, you blame the pharmaceutical industry. But it's the pharmaceutical industry which brings the smile on the face of the people, which gives lives to the people. The R&D spend of the pharmaceutical industry is the maximum. It needs to be supported. And the prices in this country are the lowest by any standards.
Okay, that's clearly a point that has come across. Very I have only 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Only 30 seconds.
Health budget has to increase, number one. But health insurance is not a substitute for health care services.
Sure.
The other thing is, like Tamil Nadu and all, if you look at their figures and you look at what they're saying, competition, retail, I'm saying it's 5,000 times the difference. So, and it's 20% only in the government health sector. So even if they decrease it, so you cannot let loose irrational use, potentially hazardous drugs. No budget, has been put for ensuring that these costly drugs are used rationally. And glabenclamide and insulin, these are the two figures I actually wanted to give. The prices
I'm really out of time.
In the retail and this thing, and since we have so many diabetics, they have to take the medicine for the rest of their life.
Sure.
It's going to be absolutely
So as we can see very differing viewpoints out there, and clearly that makes the task of policymakers even tougher. It's perhaps wishful thinking to expect that the government will give up on its revenues by way of taxation, as Mr. Handa was suggesting, but will it be able to really arrive at some sort of a formula which will please all? The industry that clearly doesn't want it impacted negatively and wants the money for R&D and innovation, the people who really expect drugs to be affordable. We'll have to wait and see how this really pans out. With that, it's a wrap with regard to this discussion on the pharma pricing policy. But on the other side of a quick break is a very, very special interview with Professor Jagdish Bhagwati of Columbia University. That's coming up after a short break. Don't go away.